Hey, welcome to the Den. I have in the Den with me a good friend, grew up in our hometown, Marianna, Arkansas, graduated from Lee Senior High, a good friend of mine, Sharon Richardson Johnson. Am I saying that right?
You are. That is
Okay,
correct.
I wasn't sure, but it's so good to see you. So
Good to see
good.
you as well.
Tell us a little bit about you.
Okay. Well, as you said, homegrown, Mariana, graduated class of 1986 with a
Woo-hoo!
role. Yeah, right. And from there, went on to the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville, received my degree, my bachelor's degree in social work, and then eventually ended up getting a master's as well as a PhD and also in social work. And before I got to that, and right after college, right after undergraduate, I got married to my hubby. We've been married for 35 no,
Wow.
32 years. We were married for a long time, 32 years.
Wow.
And we have three grown children, Zasmine, Zandria, and Xavier.
Do you have any grands? You don't mind me asking?
I have no grands. No
They
grands.
are joy. So when you do, you're gonna see what I'm talking about. I think I like my grandkids better than I like my kids.
Oh, that's probably why I don't have any. They
That's
know.
probably.
It's like, yeah, I'll be clowning out here with the kids.
Oh wow. Well, we're gonna jump right into it. The
Okay.
reason why you recently found out that you have breast cancer.
Mhm.
So we want to talk about a little bit about breast cancer, being that this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Okay.
And I couldn't think of another anybody else I'd rather have this conversation with other than you, because I feel like, we can have a genuine conversation because we're friends
Yeah,
first and
absolutely.
foremost, right? So cool beans.
Absolutely.
So when did you find out? And when you found out, what stage of
Mhm.
cancer were you at that time?
So last year in about early November, I started to have some discharge from a nipple, a breast nipple. And so I was like, So I went to my OBGYN, and of course she was like, oh, you know what, you have dense breasts. I mean, that has been something that I've always had, dense breasts. And so um, she was like, it's probably nothing. It's probably just some fibroid tissue, something like that, calcification. I've gone through that before as well. She said, but I'll go ahead and refer you to a breast surgeon. And so she referred me to a breast surgeon, and she did the exam. And so she said, yeah, but let's do a biopsy. So I had a biopsy. And then after I had a biopsy, I had an MRI, and all of those things just kind of confirmed that it was indeed breast cancer. At the time, my doctor wasn't sure if it was stage 1 or if it had moved to stage 2, because she wasn't quite sure, because the size, they do use a couple of different things to determine the staging of it. And so the size and location, she said, it could be stage 2. She said, but we really won't know until we actually go in and, do the surgery. And so, so going to do the surgery, but immediately after I received a diagnosis, she referred me to a oncologist who, his practice sort of looks at, he does a lot of infusions, and so he was good at doing the chemo. He had done a chemotherapy a lot. That was sort of his specialty. And so I went to him, and he was like, we really want to go ahead and start the treatments immediately. And so I think I received the confirmation on December 4th that it was indeed cancer and that we needed to proceed with starting some treatment. But so between December 4th and December 17th was when I had my first chemo treatment. So it was a lot of, just a lot of things that happened between then, a lot of doctor's appointments, had to have a port installed. So I got the port on a Wednesday, and I started treatments on a Thursday. So just a lot of appointments, a lot of information, just, it's kind of overwhelming a little bit.
And that's leading right into my next question. Given the fact that some people chooses to go on this journey by themselves and not let anybody know, how important is it to have a great support system? Given the fact that I know for a fact that you have an amazing support system. So how important is that?
You know what? It ended up being an incredible journey, and it really ended up being probably one of the most important things that I did, because you think about it, right? You tell your family, and you really think about, am I going to tell people, what's going on with me, and not, because we're private people, and so we don't want to get a lot, have people, we're like, I don't want anybody in my business, but then as I thought more about it, and I prayed about it, the Spirit really led me into, as African American women particularly, we don't talk enough. And so my journey may help somebody, my journey may heal somebody, my journey may save somebody. And so, it's, having somebody in my business wasn't as important to me as potentially helping someone.
And that was another question that I had. You touching on everything right when I get ready to ask you. I'm loving this interview right now because you're making it extremely easy. Thank you so much for that. So, given the fact that when you found out about it, how did you feel? What was the emotions at that point? Was I can just imagine how overwhelming it was off top, but if you can just share with us, how did you feel in that moment?
You feel a lot of pressure. It's just like, things are sort of closing in on you, and you're like, wait, what's happening, right? I knew that breast cancer was possible. Just like any other disease is possible. My mom's a 2-time breast cancer survivor, so I knew that the risk was higher. But you never just, you never think that, this is what I'm going to go through, and this is what I'm going to have to deal with. So there were a lot of emotions that were taking place at the time, and just trying to reconcile all of the information that's sort of hitting you at one time. And my breast cancer surgeon, when she called me to tell me that they had confirmed that it was indeed cancer, she was like, let me just start out by telling you that yes, it is cancer. She said, but you're not going to die. She said, there are treatments there, so please don't start stressing out. Don't and of course, I had questions, right? So I started asking her questions, and she's like, I'll answer all of your questions if you just come in on Tuesday. I'll answer all your questions. And I'm like, okay. So I came in, and I told my family, I said, hey, it is cancer that I'm dealing with, but the surgeons, my breast cancer surgeon said, but you're not going to die. So I needed to let them know right away what we were dealing with, and so that they wouldn't, because you as a mom particularly, you care so much about your children. You don't want them to be unduly stressed and worried. And so I had to set that groundwork, and for my husband, like, okay, but she said, that I'm not going to die, and we can do this, we can fight this. And so and I guess she could hear in my voice sort of the concern, because I immediately started asking her questions. And so she called me back, and she was like, you know what, I had a cancellation, so you can come in today. You can come in today so you can get all these questions answered. So I was like, cool. So me, my husband, and my 2 daughters, we went in, and because of COVID, everybody couldn't go in with me. So my husband went in, and we FaceTime. So my girls, because they wouldn't even let them in the office, so my girls were in the car, and so she was going through and going over all of her recommendations, and you can do this and this, but this is what I recommend. And again, a whole lot of information. I'm not 100% certain that I heard pretty much anything she said. But I'm like, because it was a lot.
I can only imagine.
And she didn't just. No, what I will say, no, she didn't just say, oh, and you have this, because some of it she still hadn't confirmed, but, all of these possibilities. And so going over all of these, scenarios before she finally got to what she was recommending. And, so my head was just like spinning, right? And I was like, I can't right now. So back to your original question, it is absolutely important to have a support system. Even if you don't want to have like a what I call like an army, an army of people that mobilize behind me, right? Having someone that can be there with you, that can hear the conversations that the doctor's having with you, because I got 3 degrees, right? Maybe 4. It was it was gone. I mean, there was nothing that I was like, okay. I was like, yeah, okay. But I needed someone there with me who could hear what was being said, and not just me, because all the emotions, all the fear, everything was sort of going on in my head. So you have to have that support system. You have to have someone. I wouldn't want anyone to go through this alone. So making the decision to tell people, it was a tough one, because in fact, I really didn't say anything. The people at my church, they knew, and some of the people at work knew, but it wasn't until like the day before my first treatment that I decided, I'm just gonna, tell people on Facebook, because I want people to pray for me. I want to, I was not expecting the amount of support and love that I received. It was overwhelming. I mean, I knew people, right? But I just didn't know how much people could encourage me, how much love that could be shown for me and for my family. And it was overwhelming.
It is amazing how we sometimes think that our support is like in this little box, but then when we open it up and tell people what's going on with us, the support that pours in. I experienced that on firsthand when my son was ill, and it was just, it was amazing. It was simply amazing. So I can only imagine.
Yeah.
So if you could, just touch on some of the treatment process that you had to undergo, or that you're still undergoing.
So initially, I started out with 6 treatments of, there are 4 drugs that, so I have I had HER2 positive breast cancer. And so one of the things I learned, or I'm learning in this process, is that everyone is really different. And so every treatment, there's some standard treatments that they do, but then it really has to be customized, because everyone's diagnosis is different. You're at different stages. You're at, there are folks who, there are women who have breast cancer in both breasts, but one may be one type and another is another type. I mean, there's just so many different dynamics that sort of go into this diagnosis. And so for me, the standard of care was to receive 6 treatments of chemotherapy with 4 types of drugs. And then after that, to have surgery. But then, so after the first 6 treatments, then I have an additional 12 treatments, 12 infusions that include only 2 of the 4 drugs that I was given. So the first 6 treatments, and I went to receive those every 3 weeks. And so those first 6 treatments included some really heavy chemo drugs, right? What I'm doing now is more of a maintenance, but it included some heavy chemo drugs. And so that's when, the fatigue and the nausea, the diarrhea, the hair loss, all of those things that you sort of imagine happens when people go through chemo. Those first 6 treatments was when I went through that cycle. And then after that, the treatments that I've had since then, and I'll continue to have until the beginning of December, those infusions are not as, the side effects of those are not as severe at all. In fact, I go in, I have a treatment, and I don't even, there are absolutely no side effects that are, significant for me. So I did those first 6, and then I had surgery. My doctor had recommended that I have, because of I had, at the time, I had 3, the lumps were in 3 places, or cancer was in 3 places in my breast. And so the doctor recommended that I have that breast removed. I'm not at high risk, but the HER2 positive, the HER2 type of cancer is it's an aggressive one, and it moves really fast. And so the surgeon and the oncologist together recommended that I just go ahead and have a double mastectomy, so that I would not have to, deal. It lowers the risk of the cancer returning. And at the time, also, there was something, before I started treatment, there was something on the non-cancer identified breast, and they were like, well, maybe, this could be, we can do a biopsy to see. But at that point, I had already decided that I knew that I was just going to go ahead and do a double mastectomy. And so they didn't do the biopsy. And so I had the double mastectomy. And so now I'm finishing up the treatments.
Cool. That is awesome. Just awesome. If there was any, if any, during your treatment and during this journey that you're on with cancer, have there been any obstacles in your that might have came up, and how did you deal with those? And yeah.
You know what? Obstacles. You know, I can't really, at this point when I'm sort of looking back at the journey that I had, and I don't say that I have cancer. Once I had surgery and, you know, the pathology test came back and said that I was, you know, the cancer was removed and there was no, you know, there was nothing linked. I am cancer free. I don't say that I have. That's a past journey. And so, but the obstacles, I can't think of any obstacles because, you know, I said from the beginning, I knew that God was going to bring me through this. And so he's been awesome. He's been faithful. And so I don't even, you know, and thinking back on it, I'm like, you know what, you know, he did such an awesome job. What can no, there were no obstacles. You know, it was just, yeah, it was just, you know, where everything worked out with my job, you know, family, you know, somebody was always, you know, around to provide support, and I was always getting encouragement. So yeah, I can't really say that there were any major obstacles. And I know that my journey is very different because I know that there are people who do face obstacles. They face, you know, I was in a situation where, you know, I had health insurance. I live relatively close to treatment facilities. We have excellent facilities here in St. Louis. And I know everybody doesn't have that. There are some obstacles that come up for folks. There are people, as you said before, there are people who either choose to do this journey on their own, or they just don't have anybody to be there with them. And so I recognize how blessed I am. And so I don't think there are any obstacles for me.
Okay, that's great. That is really great. So in closing, before we close, what message would you give the women in our community when it comes to breast cancer?
So when it comes to breast cancer, obviously, you know, screening, doing the self-examinations, going in for mammograms. If you find something or you have a question about something, don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask your doctor. Don't be afraid to ask your, you know, whether even if it's your primary care and you haven't gone. But you know, go and get those exams done, and you know, ask those questions. My daughter went in and she went to see an OBGYN and she came out, she's like, yeah, she didn't do a breast exam. I was like, look, we just went through this journey with me. I was like, you call her back and you tell her she need to feel your breast. She need to find out what's going on with your breast. You need to know, because, you know, even as young women and older women, regardless of your age, you need to check. And so sometimes I think we hesitate to go, we hesitate to ask the questions, and we think that by fear and not saying anything is going to go away, and it doesn't go away. Yes. And so the earlier you can find out what's going on, the more you're able to, the more options you have in terms of the treatment.
Because, you know, some of us, we don't go to the doctor, we don't ask those questions because we feel like if we don't know, then it's not going to hurt us, you know.
So but it's slowly hurting us, and that's the thing. It is slowly hurting us, and it is slowly killing us. And then when we, as African American women, then we get to the point where when we find out that we have a diagnosis, then it's so advanced, then we have very few options. And so that's what, you know, that's the whole idea of the you know, of learning more and getting the awareness out there, so that when you get a disease like breast cancer or whatever type of cancer it is, then you have as many options available to you as possible, because you want to save your life and you want to be able to live a healthy and productive life. So getting the exams, but then also, you know, for me, my journey has proven to me that the value of a support system cannot, you just can't put a price tag on it. Having a support system is incredibly important. It is, for your emotional well-being. We always go in it and we think about, well, yeah, this is going to be a physical journey, and it was a physical journey, but it was also an emotional journey. It was a mental journey. But just having people there who could, who can, just speak life into you, who can just say, hey, it's going to be okay. Hey, I see you going through this journey. I see how you're dealing with it. This is an encouragement to me. This is an encouragement to other people, and then just having people, reach out to me and say, hey, I'm going through this, I see, I'm just looking at, sort of what you're going through, just wanted to reach out and, see how you're doing or see how you're doing it, that kind of thing. And having, letting people know, hey, I'm here if you have a question, or if you just want somebody to talk to, if you just want somebody to cry to, whatever it is, I'm here, because the love and support that I received was so overwhelming that I can't help but to give it back.
And it shows. And that's why I chose you to do this interview, because I know we was going to get great information and excellent conversation. And I thank you so much, Sharon. I was on your Facebook page and I read something you post, and it says, I didn't choose this journey, but I am living through it by God's grace. And I think you have shown that through your through explaining and telling us about your journey. And it's just an amazing story. And I really, really, really do appreciate you sharing it with us. And I'm hoping your journey could just simply be, to sharing your story, hoping and someone else hear it and give them the strength to, to get through whatever. It don't even have to be cancer. Right. It could be anything. And your story can help them get through to the other side. And once again, the Den is just so excited about you being in here, and we thank you so much for coming. Now,
thank you, April.
You're so welcome, sweetheart, and you look amazing.
Well, thank you. Again, God's grace is awesome. So I'm a reflection of His grace.
So I follow you on social media. And so when you do something phenomenal, I'm bringing you back. So watch what you post, because you will be back in the Den. I'm just giving you a heads up. You'll come right up, conversation with you. It's so easy to talk to you, because every question that I had, your conversation just led right to the next question. And this got to be the easiest interview I done had thus far. I really do appreciate it.
Well, thank you for thinking of me, and I'm proud of you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
You bring light and laughter to every situation. When you are not in Facebook jail, you are killing it, girl.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. All the encouragement, because sometimes it gets so hard to do what I like to do, and that's run my mouth. So I got the perfect platform, right?
Right.
So until next time, sweetheart, thanks again for coming to the Den, and keep doing what you're doing, because it look good on you.
All right. Thank you. Same to you.
Bye, sweetheart.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.